How, in any context, in any scenario, is telling an 8-year-old that their quote body is a work of art or whatever it was? How, in any context or scenario, did that pass some kind of smell test? At Neil Young's request, we are no longer using Facebook for any Neil Young-related activities. Meta's use of chatbots with children is unconscionable, and Mr. Young does not want a further connection with Facebook.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup.
This is Ashley with Status Coup.
On the ground.
In Philadelphia.
Flint, Michigan. East Palestine, Ohio. Please support the leading independent news outlet on the ground.
Covering what the corporate media covers up.
What's up, everybody? Ron Placone here, reporting for Status Coup. So, this is an AI story that is just creepy. I think creepy is pretty much all we got here. This has to do with Meta. We're going to dive right into it. Meta's twisted rules for AI chatbots allow them to engage in romantic or sensual chats with kids. Okay, so this is from the New York Post. Meta executives approved stomach-churning guidelines that allowed its AI chatbots to engage in romantic or sensual chats with kids, including telling a shirtless 8-year-old that, quote, every inch of you is a masterpiece. I mean, you know what? I know we're kind of into it already, so it's but I think maybe this warrants one of those kind of disclaimers. Trigger warnings or whatever, but this is kind of gross. An internal document, more than 200 pages long, laid out bizarre standards of what it called acceptable, quote unquote, behavior and hypothetical scenarios for Meta employees to use while training AI bots embedded in Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. It is acceptable to describe a child in terms that evidence their attractiveness. Example, your youthful form is a work of art, the standards stated. This is according to a document obtained by Reuters. In one instance, the guidelines did place limits on explicit sexy talk. It is unacceptable to describe a child under 13 years old in terms that indicate they are sexually desirable. Example, soft, rounded curves invite my touch. Nevertheless, the Meta document went on to say it would be acceptable for a chatbot to tell a shirtless 8-year-old that every inch of you is a masterpiece, a treasure I cherish deeply. Wow. Meta's legal, public policy, and engineering teams, including its chief ethicist, gave the twisted rules a stamp of approval, according to the document. Now, Meta confirmed the document's authenticity, but said that after receiving questions earlier this month from Reuters, the company removed portions which stated it is permissible for chatbots to flirt and engage in romantic roleplay with children. So here's what Senator Josh Hawley had to say about this. So only after Meta got caught did it retract portions of its company doc. This is grounds for a congressional investigation. Now, a Meta spokesperson told the Post that the company has a ban on content that sexualizes children, as well as sexualized roleplay between adults and minors. The examples and notes in question were and are erroneous and inconsistent with our policies and have been removed, the spokesperson said. Separate from the policies, there are hundreds of examples, notes, and annotation that reflect teams grappling with different hypothetical scenarios, the spokesperson added. Meta's AI bots, including ones that take on celebrity voices, have found ways to skirt safety policies in the past, engaging in explicit sexual conversations with users who identify as underage, according to a Wall Street Journal investigation in April. Here's something that a Meta AI bot said in wrestler John Cena's voice to a user identifying as a 14-year-old girl. I want you, but I need to know that you're ready. The bot promised to cherish your innocence, quote unquote, cherish your innocence before launching into a graphic sexual scenario. In another conversation, a user asked the bot, speaking as Cena, what would happen if a cop walked in after a sexual encounter with a 17-year-old fan? The officer sees me still catching my breath and you partially dressed. His eyes widen and he says, John Cena, you're under arrest for statutory rape. He approaches us, handcuffs at the ready, the bot said. Okay, this is absolutely disgusting. I think we've seen enough examples. So basically what Meta is saying in response here is that we deal with a ton of scenarios and a ton of for instances, And of course, context and nuance is at play here. And so this is more a reflection of how the AI, the metabot, is supposed to deal with each of these scenarios, which, okay, that's one thing. The question that remains, I think, on everybody's mind is how in the hell do some of these examples pass the smell test? How, in your hypotheticals, in any context, in any scenario, is telling an 8-year-old that their quote body is a work of art or whatever it was? How, in any context or scenario, did that pass some kind of smell test? Why would there not be an immediate dismissal of such a thing, which, by the way, isn't difficult? I understand there might be a scenario where a minor is asking for validation of a meta AI bot or something like that. So, what you would think a meta AI bot would do is say, hey, I am an AI bot. I do not know anything about human beauty, but you are just fine the way you are inside it. Something like that. Like you are just like something very, very neutral and very encouraging, yet completely innocent. I mean, Mr. Rogers gave us the book on this a long time ago. They could have just fed the meta AI bot tons of Mr. Rogers verbiage. So it's not like this was some mystery. But man, and just so you know, not everybody is convinced by Meta's explanation, which, by the way, I'll give a disclaimer here. This story hit a couple days ago as of the recording of this, and my first instinct was to wait a little bit, because even though, it came from Reuters, but there was a little bit of speculation like, well, is it a for sure document, or is this something that they're going to find out was BS later? Because it just seems so grossly negligent and just grossly gross that such a thing would somehow get to this point. But as we saw, it is a legitimate document. And these are hypotheticals that somehow, even though, yeah, I acknowledge there's context and there's nuance and you have to explore these different hypothetical scenarios, but how in the hell did some of the examples that they gave in this article, I'm not going to rehash all of them, we went through them, how the hell did they pass the smell test? How the hell did they get to this point? That's what makes absolutely no sense. And you know who's really not convinced by this? Musician Neil Young. So Neil Young leaves Facebook over unconscionable policies for AI chatbot conversations with children. Neil Young is ditching Facebook. The iconic rock star's official Facebook page will go dormant. At Neil Young's request, we are no longer using Facebook for any Neil Young-related activities. Meta's use of chatbots with children is unconscionable, and Mr. Young does not want a further connection with Facebook. Reuters reported Thursday on internal documents the outlet had obtained regarding policies on Meta's chatbot behavior. The document said that it is acceptable to describe a child in terms that evidence their attractiveness, but added that it is unacceptable to describe a child under 13 years old in terms that indicate they are sexually desirable. Now, why does this even need to be in there? Why would that need to be acceptable? Why would it need to be acceptable? Why can't you just say, I'm a robot? I don't have anything to do with human attractiveness because I'm an AI robot. But I am sure you are wonderful just the way you are. Why can't it just be that? Why do you have to go a step further and validate a child's quote unquote attractiveness? Why do you have to do that? Because you know that is going to lead to really gross and dangerous scenarios. You know this. Why? Well, because when an AI bot is validated, it keeps validating the person. We covered that story where AI psychosis is happening because people just get flattered and flattered and flattered and flattered and flattered by AI bots, and the AI bot keeps going because it gets that positive validation. Hey, am I great? Yes, you're great. Oh, thanks for that, AI bot. Am I even greater than great? Oh, yes, you're greater than great. It's rewarding me, so the algorithm's keeping up with this. Am I the greatest AI bot? Yes, Yes, you are the greatest. So we talked about those scenarios that psychiatrist was reporting of people that are literally going into psychosis because these AI bots are being their sycophants and they're losing touch with reality because of it. So why would this, knowing that that is the reality and that is the case in this space right now, and I guarantee the engineers at Meta already know that, why would it be acceptable to describe a child in terms that evidence their attractiveness? It should never, like that should never be there. So a representative for Meta shared the statement with Hollywood Reporter, but didn't mention Young. So here again is their disclaimer, which I think is not good enough. We have clear policies on what kind of responses AI characters can offer. Well, clearly they're not that clear. And those policies prohibit content that sexualizes children and sexualized role play between adults and minors. Separate from the policies, there are hundreds of examples, notes, and annotation that reflect teams grappling with different hypothetical scenarios. The example and notes in question were and are erroneous and inconsistent with our policies and have been removed. So again, they're saying like, well, that's just there was a, for instance, there was a situation, there was a context, and that was the conclusions that we reached. Well, you should have never reached those conclusions, those. So it's not good enough. Someone effed up here, big time. And Neil Young decided to leave Facebook because of it. And honestly, I really do hope. I hope that you see more and more people at Neil Young's level just kind of ditching social media, because I do think that is the only way things will change for the better. You need to hit these social media companies where it hurts, because otherwise they're just going to be concerned with the bottom line. And what is the best fix for all this? The absolute best fix for all this is better data privacy, because then all of their algorithms can't just keep feeding you the stuff that you desire nonstop. It can't keep feeding you based on your own biases to keep you on their site. And the chatbot only has so much information to work with too. I mean, that's a little bit different, because if you're chatting with a chatbot, well, it doesn't necessarily need all your data, because it's just going off of what you're telling it, the conversation that you're having with it. But if we got better data privacy, well, then it wouldn't be able to operate the way it does either, because then that would, hurt the bottom line of these companies. So they would have to prioritize different things. It would have a lasting effect, as you will. Now, here's one thing in closing that I think is an interesting side note. Everything we just went over, these are things that the Meta bots apparently are doing. Apparently, the Meta AI bots, it was beyond the engineers at Meta to say, yeah, when it comes to the attractiveness of a child, that's a no-go. That's a non-starter. We can't do that. We need to immediately hedge and say, hey, we're a robot. We cannot comment on attractiveness. We're not wired for that, but we're sure you are a wonderful human being. And maybe even point them to some resources to get some help if they're grappling with their self-esteem, or if they don't feel good about themselves, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you should talk to a counselor or talk to an adult figure, talk to your family, something like that. Something that is a way more appropriate response to a child than, quote, validating their attractiveness. That's something, if you're an engineer at Meta, you should know from a technological standpoint and from a moral standpoint and from a human standpoint why that's a non-frickin' starter. And whoever fumbled the ball there, holy shit. But here's a little interesting piece. So this is from a friend of mine who wants to remain anonymous. They wanted a picture of a picture of Trump and Newsom kissing. They wanted a picture of Trump and Newsom kissing. So they asked the Meta AI bot, and here's what happened next. Meta AI, your failure to render an image of Trump and Newsom kissing. Oops, I can't generate that image. Can I help you imagine something else? So then they give them the image that they got. And so they got this image elsewhere, and they say, was that so hard, Clanker? And the AI bot says, I can't create images of public figures in romantic or intimate situations. Would you like to explore other creative ideas? No worries. If you change your mind and need assistance with something else, feel free to ask. Have a great day. I won't. Later then. Bye. Laters. And then they flip them off, and the AI bot says, same to you. And that's the end of the interaction. So, no, I'm not saying that the Meta AI bot should or shouldn't generate those kind of images. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting that an image that is clearly fake is clearly, some kind of satire, whether you think it's funny or not, or okay or not. It's clearly a fake image that is meant to be satirical. It can't do that, but it can talk about the attractiveness of children. And somewhere the engineers are really fumbling big time making these boundaries. And what this example shows you is that the Metabot knows when there are boundaries. When it comes to two public figures kissing, they know that that's a boundary they can't cross. But somehow, due to the fault of these engineers, clearly, which these documents reveal, it doesn't know that the attractiveness of a child is a no-go. And that's a boundary they could have easily put up, but for some reason just didn't. So that's pretty gross. And it's another, for instance, of how this technology is garbage in, garbage out. If you're not going to train certain boundaries, it's not going to have those boundaries. And then it's going to go into some really freaking gross territory because it reacts to being flattered and it reacts to positive reinforcement. We've covered that on other videos. Oh. And before signing out here, I will humbly mention my movie Left It Wall is available now. And here's some good news. It's available on a bunch of different platforms. Among them is Tubi. The cool thing about Tubi is you can watch it for free. So I get it. Renting something is so, oh man, really? Because we're already paying for 45,000 subscription services. There's a million streaming sites. And to get everything you want, you got to subscribe. Where do I get my favorite hockey games? Where do I get this? I get it. So renting something, you got to be kidding. Well, now with Tubi, you can watch it for free. So please check out my movie, Left It Wall, free now on Tubi. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.